We pivot to the United States now. He became the face of the U.S. Capitol riots on January 6th. Jacob Chansley, also known as QAnon Shaman, pled guilty to obstructing Congress. Well, today he will be sentenced. Prosecutors have asked for 4 years behind bars. A lengthy jail term, they say, would act as a deterrent to similar attacks in the future.
Face paint, a furry hat with horns, tattoos all over, and a 6-foot spear in his hand. This man became the public face of the Capitol riot on January 6th. Originally from Arizona, Chansley, who is also a U.S. Navy veteran, defined himself as a former actor and QAnon leader, a far-right cult centered on false claims. Chansley pleaded guilty in September to obstruction of an official proceeding by an act of civil disorder and threatening congressional officials. He spent more than 300 days in jail. He is one of more than 50 people who have pleaded guilty among 600 charged in the riot that forced lawmakers into hiding as they were meeting to certify President Joe Biden's electoral college victory. 5 people died, and there were assaults against 139 police officers. An attack on U.S. democracy that shocked the world. Prosecutors recommended a prison sentence of more than 4 years for Chansley, the longest incarceration they have asked for any guilty defendant of January 6 so far. The prosecutors hope to use Chansley's sentence as an example to deter future attacks on U.S. government.
That report by my colleague, Carolina Chamoy, and she joins us now from Washington. Carolina, what's your reading? How do you think this will go?
Hi, Leila. Well, we just heard it. The prosecutors recommend more than 4 years in prison for Chansley, and this would be the longest incarceration they have asked for any guilty defendant of January 6th. The prosecutors, they argue that Chansley was among the first 30 people to enter the Capitol, and that for weeks before the riot, he used his social media accounts to spread false information that also motivated other rioters to head to the U.S. Capitol. He was a kind of leader for many on that day, and he even defined himself after the riot as a QAnon leader. He also pleaded guilty in September to obstruction of an official proceeding, and this would usually mean a sentence of maximum 20 years in prison. But under a plea agreement with the government, Mr. Chansley faces now a potential sentence of 41 to 51 months. That means more than 4 years.
Carolina, contextualize this for us. What is the significance of this case?
Well, we all saw him on January 6th. Chansley, he was one of the most recognizable participants in the riot. And let's remember, he was walking down the halls of the Capitol shirtless, with a painted face, holding that 6-foot spear. He was among the first 30 people, I already said it, going into the Capitol on January 6th. And therefore, he became rapidly one of the most famous faces of that riot. Therefore, his sentence will also set an example for the other Capitol rioters and their cases in court. And while detention, this is important to point out, Leila, Chansley was diagnosed by prison officials with schizophrenia, with bipolar disorder, with depressions and anxiety. And when he entered his guilty plea, he said he was disappointed of former President Donald Trump because he had not pardoned him.
And it's been a very busy week, Carolina. This isn't the only event related to the January 6th riots.
Indeed, a very busy week. We also have a different case in Kenosha that is about a different murder we saw in the summer. But also regarding this riot, Leila, more than 675 people have been already arrested for crimes related to that Capitol riot. And according to the Justice Department, more than 50 people have pleaded guilty. So we'll still remain on this story and see how the sentence goes on for Chansley, and if this is indeed going to set an example for the other cases.
All right, Carolina Chamoy, DW correspondent in Washington, reporting. Thank you very much. And all eyes in the United States are also on another high-profile case. Anticipation is at fever pitch as the country waits a verdict from jurors weighing charges against Kyle Rittenhouse. The teenager faces life in prison if convicted of killing 2 men and injuring a third. He shot the 3 men during protests against racial injustice in Kenosha, Wisconsin, back in August 2020. Mr. Rittenhouse has testified he acted in self-defense. The case has become a flashpoint in the U.S. debate over gun rights and racial tensions.
Was it an act of self-defense or gratuitous violence? That's the question facing 12 jurors as the U.S. awaits the verdict of Kyle Rittenhouse. He was just 17 years old when he shot dead 2 people and injured a third in Kenosha, Wisconsin last August. Protests swept through the city after police shot a black man, Jacob Blake, leaving him partially paralysed. It came just 3 months after the murder of George Floyd, an incident that stunned the world and left America reeling, sparking a wave of anti-racism demonstrations at the height of the COVID pandemic. Rittenhouse, who faces life in prison if found guilty, claims he was there to protect property and provide first aid. He travelled there from neighbouring Illinois with a semi-automatic rifle reportedly given to him by a friend. Awaiting a verdict, protesters in support of and against Rittenhouse have gathered outside Kenosha County Courthouse for days. The judges pleaded with the jury to set aside any political or public commentary and focus on the facts. But in a case which crystallises the country's polarising views on the issues of race, police violence and a growing culture of vigilantism, the outcome of the trial will have implications far beyond the fate and future of Kyle Rittenhouse.